Good evening, everyone. I'm Vasudevan, the cluster lead of the Finance and Economics cluster at the Nuclear and Dime, Jindal Global University. So we'll be having this month's roundtable, and the topic for discussion will be the impact of tariffs and trade barriers. Like tariffs and trade barriers are an important point of discussion when it actually comes to international trade. And this has been an important point of discussion in all multilateral institutions ranging from the World Trade Organization. And many countries have their own point of view. So starting with the first question for today's roundtable, and that is, to what extent do tariffs and trade barriers protect the domestic industries? So starting with Aryan.
Yeah. So having tariffs and trade barriers to protect the domestic industries is a good manner of to promote indigenous goods and services. But to what extent is the question? Where if the like if we take India's example, India had a huge amount of tariffs and trade barriers post liberalization. We could see that the domestic industries had taken advantage of that fact, which had made them anti-competitive. They were not up to the world standards. It's a double-edged sword. We can say that it is good to promote the domestic industries to make them. At par with the international companies, I would say. But having too much of it is always disadvantageous for the country, because if we look at the consumer side, we see that even though the domestic goods might get cheaper as compared to international goods, it the quality of the goods might be compromised if domestic goods are promoted too much in comparison to the international goods and services. Yeah.
Yes, Aryan. Great points raised by you. So Shreya, you have something to add?
Yeah, I do have something to add. So, similarly, I feel that while tariffs can shield local industries by making foreign products costlier, and it can encourage consumers as well to choose domestic alternatives, like India has several such campaigns as well. But I think in the end, they might also lead to retaliation from other countries and ultimately result in higher prices for consumers.
Yes, like speaking of my points, I think even I would say that even I have a similar point of view when it comes to tariffs and trade barriers. Look, at least look, as far as India is concerned, India is a mixed economy. So we have both the government and private sector participating in our economy. And moving forward, India is actually like drifting towards converting itself into a capitalist economy. And for a capitalist economy, trade barriers and tariffs are something which doesn't encourage the whole nature or the existence of a capitalist economy. But like according to me, in the Indian industries, where much of the support has to be given, only in that sectors, if tariffs are given, I think I would strongly support that. But like having an uniform tariff rate in across all industries is something which I wouldn't support. So these were my points of view on till what extent can we have a tariff and trade barriers. As long as it is to promote the domestic industries, like it is good. But if it like breaches that point of view, like that is something which shouldn't be encouraged. So great, great points raised by Aryan and Shreya. So moving on to the second question, and that is, do subsidies play an important role in supporting domestic industry? So what do both of you have to say on that?
So looking at subsidies is a very tricky concept. If we look at developed countries like America and all, it provides a lot of subsidies, whereas it discourages developing countries to provide subsidies. In India, like the current government is providing subsidies, but the rate at which it is providing subsidies has definitely reduced. Subsidies in the agricultural sector is quite important, I would say, because Indian farmers are already, due to small land holdings, their earning capacity is quite low when compared to other developed nations, where developed nation farmers get a huge amount of subsidies, all which are available for them to be to be used as per their convenience. I would say that subsidies is necessary for in the Indian context to an extent that it can help the underprivileged industries like MSMEs or agricultural industries uh, to match the international standards, because since developed countries are already doing that, India giving it is just a way manner to just even the level field, so that we can match with the international goods in the, at least in the agricultural sector. India being the leader in quite a lot of agricultural goods and commodities, I would say that giving subsidies is an important factor to ensure that the farmers do get the right price that they deserve.
Yes, so even I think even I had a similar point of view. So speaking of subsidies, the only thing which I get reminded of is that India gets vehemently opposed at the at international trade organizations when it actually comes to giving subsidies to farmers. So US, like countries like US, Canada, they strongly oppose India giving subsidies to their to farmers. And the only point of the only point which India keeps at the multilateral organizations such as WTO is that subsidies are like important to protect their farmers. So like apart from giving subsidies to farmers, I even support subsidies for establishing industries. And one major example would be the production linked in incentives, which was given to the to select industries such as smartphone industries or even laptop industries to name a few. So like subsidies like this which attract in the industries and also like supporting small farmers, that is something which can be supported. So to make sure that like in India becomes a dominant player in the global industry, subsidies are something which are important. And there are many success stories are also, like China actually became a manufacturing powerhouse due to subsidies, which it actually gave in the 80s or even 90s. And in the same way, like many countries such as even the US or even the EU, they give subsidies to support their industries. So Shreya, you have anything to add?
I think on similar lines, as long as subsidies do not create market inefficiencies or like bolster trade between two countries, I think they are a necessary incentive and aid that certain industries at least need, especially in context of India. That's it from my side.
Yes, thank you so much for that point. And moving on to the third question, and that is, are import quotas effective in protecting domestic industries?
If we look at import quotas, the history would say that it is not a good measure to promote the domestic industries. If we take India's this only pre-liberalization, we saw that all these importing all the computer parts or aircraft parts and all, have keeping a lot of government control over it has hampered that industry a lot. We could see with the example of Infosys. We saw that during its earlier incubation period, they faced a lot of issues when they were trying to import all the computer parts from different countries. I think that having like having import quotas is not a good way to promote or protect domestic industries. as it would create a sense of discouragement among the international communities, where in the current scenario, India is where it is trying to be a global leader in and have a good presence in the world. It would discourage the international communities if import restrictions and import quotas are being introduced. But during the 80s period, it was necessary for India to promote the domestic industries. But in the current scenario, I would say that it's not a necessary tool to push the domestic industries. It would be a harsh move from the harsh move which could affect the economy as a whole.
Okay, so speaking of my point of view, I would say that import, like, as long as, look, we have actually observed in situations where countries actually dump their products into some other country. So like countries such as China and South Korea, I'm actually speaking of a recent example, where in countries such as China and South Korea, they were actually dumping cheap quality steel. So that was something which was hurting the domestic steel industry. So the India steel manufacturers, they actually sent out a letter to the to the Ministry of Commerce stating that the ministry must take some steps to ensure that these countries do not dump their cheap quality cheap quality steel. So as long as like quotas like these, they actually prevent dumping, and also they actually do not misuse the trade rules. They are something which are admissible. But just for the sake of protecting the domestic industries, and also recklessly providing import quotas might hurt the nation's economy itself. Like, so any quotas or barriers, well, like, they must have their own limits. So these are the points which I had to add. So Shreya, do you have anything to say?
I think just one more point that while limiting foreign competition, quotas might also sometimes reduce consumer choices and potentially lead to inflation or a system of higher prices in the market with limited choice. So that might be another detrimental situation that quotas would lead to. That's it.
Okay, good points raised raised by all of you. So we have come to the final question, and this is the continuation of the previous question. So look, instances of dumping have been observed in various countries such as India. Like, how do you think we can discourage dumping? So with this question, make sure that you also conclude your own point. So since this being the last question, make sure that you answer this question and also you conclude your point. Yes, Aryan.
In the recent scenario, dumping has been an issue, like we can see in the case of Philippines and previously in the case of China, where the developed countries are sending their e-waste for recycle in the name of recycling. They're sending it to the developing countries, where there is no proper management or the technology to scavenge what is an important component from the e-waste, uh, discouraging like for developing countries. If one country does this like discourage that dumping and all those rules, it has other options of countries which are desperate to get money. Um, for in the case of India, India used to be a huge dumping ground for medical waste from a lot of developed countries like Australia, New Zealand, US, and all. Um, it has it since India doesn't have a proper way of disposing that. It had caused a lot of issues like contamination of soil and all. Um, I would say that dumping is a very crucial issue in the developing countries. So introducing anti-dumping laws and strictly enforcing it is a necessity, and government's involvement in it, and along with international support would be the most crucial part to discourage dumping in India. And with India becoming a global leader in all sorts, I would say that having a strong anti-dumping law is a good step towards the future, where India itself won't allow dumping and won't go for dumping in other developing countries.
Okay. So Aryan, so you spoke of only one aspect of dumping, and that is dumping of waste. Like, dumping has its own definition. So if you actually speak of dumping also means that selling the goods of one country to some other country at dirt cheap prices. Even that is also something which is actually known as dumping. So India has been a victim of dumping from countries such as China, to say, because China exports all its goods at very cheap prices, hurting the domestic industry of India. So I think one step which the Indian government had taken was that to impose a whole scale banning of only import of products from China. The one good example would be the ban of toys from China. So China used to dump most of their toys, which were actually of very low quality, to India. So this actually hurted the Indian industries a lot. So what Indian government did was they actually banned it. So the only practical way, according to me, to prevent dumping would be to ban the import. Like that is the only way wherein we can prevent that. So this could be the only way. So speaking of conclusions, I would say that tariffs and trade barriers, as long as they are present to develop the domestic industries, it would be something which would be beneficial for the economy. As long as it is within that limit, it is really very good for that for any economy. But once it breaches that level to develop, I really don't think it would be of benefit to that economy. It'll actually convert itself more into a socialist economy. And at least like seeing the recent trends, I would say that capitalism is the only way if we actually look forward. So countries such as US or even South Korea or even Japan, they became so developed only because they followed the capitalist model of development. And even I strongly feel that India has to go on to the path of the capitalist form of economy, moving from the the mixed part of the mixed type of economy. So this is the only thing which I had to add. So Shreya, you can speak of your points with the conclusion. We actually have a very little amount of time left. So
Yeah.
be more concise with your
So
points.
just continuing further, Vasu, I feel that striking the right balance between protecting domestic goods and ensuring that customer has a fair right to choice, which is coupled with equitable prices in the market, it is very necessary to understand that we use all these trade barriers in a more restrictive fashion and make them an exception rather than making it the norm to protect domestic industries. That's it from my side.
Thank you so much, Aryan and Shreya. So hope we actually had a very informative discussion on the impact of tariffs and trade barriers. So hope we actually came to know more about the impact of subsidies and tariffs and trade barriers they actually have on the economy and also on the international trade. Thank you so much for joining.